Alrighty, folks, welcome to one of my favorite shows of the month. That's right. It's time to get spicy with
Get
Amy
spicy.
Dingmann. So Amy
Yeah.
Dingmann from A Farmer's Kind of Life is here. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee, which you don't have to be in Tennessee to listen to my podcast,
You don't?
but some people think you do.
That's true.
How'd you find me?
You know, that was so many millions of years ago. I don't know. It was probably you maybe came up in a search on the podcast player, or maybe it was through Jack Spirko, but it was like a million years ago, so I don't remember.
I know exactly how I found you.
How?
Mark Alexander
Yeah?
was like, hey, I want to drop off meat because I appreciate what you're doing. Never met the dude before in my life, right?
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
like, bring me your meat. He's like, here's this lady. Her podcast is called A Farmer's Kind of Life. You have to check it out. I think you guys would be like, we'd really like each other. That's how
Really?
I found, and then I went and checked you out.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's why I know about you. I probably would have found you anyway, but
Eventually.
but he was a really good connector of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's cool.
yeah. By the way, Mark Alexander ended up being a pretty good friend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's how
Anyway.
it works out.
It is how it works out. Well, so it's snowing, huh?
There is this thing that happens that when you and I have a live stream scheduled, apparently it snows on my farm. And I don't know what to think about this, Nicole. The last time we had a live stream was Halloween, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Halloween, and we had a big old snowstorm. I mean, not like a huge blizzard, but it definitely snowed. And what happens here in Minnesota is when you don't have snow for a long time, then that first snow, nobody can remember how to drive. Nobody can remember how to do life, and then we have a couple snows and people kind of work into it again and it's fine. So we had the snow on Halloween and it all melted. And we have not had snow again at my farm until guess what? Yesterday.
You're welcome. You should just like schedule a show with me when you need snow.
When we need snow.
You ever need snow?
I mean, I don't know. Sometimes can I pick the kind of snow that it is? Like the, like fluffy, just not like heavy, wet, heart attack, slush, kind of that snow. I don't want that snow. But here's the thing. Now the snow is gone. The sun just came out like 2 hours ago, and now the snow is gone. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You are powerful.
You needed precipitation, right?
I did. We do. We do need precipitation. So I will take it. But the cats were very upset. They were like, what is this? Why do you keep doing this? I said, it's Nicole's fault. It's not mine.
They're like,
they were. That's exactly. Because some of them are like new, they were just born this year. And so they're like,
we don't know what this is.
I don't know what this is.
By the end of the winter, they're going to be like, whatever.
Yeah. They'll be so badass. It'll be crazy. Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably be that way too if I was going barefoot in the snow.
That's true. I
I
never thought of that.
So I have to confess, I've always gone barefoot in the snow for the following reason. I heat with wood. Wood is outside and not inside. And if it's the middle of the night and oops, I didn't put enough inside the house and it's through the snow, I don't bother putting shoes on. I just like walk really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love being barefoot.
Yeah, I do too. And if you're just going out and back in, it's not a big deal from a coldness standpoint.
Right.
It's if you're out in it a long time.
Yes.
Martinson family says they got their first snowfall yesterday. We had a freeze earlier in October.
Yeah.
Like not super, like a frost. It's better, like exactly 32 degrees.
Yeah.
And my plants made it through that.
Uh-huh.
And then our first like real freeze, but that's not the real freeze. We have 3 kinds of freeze here. This is a freeze where it actually kind of stays cold. And it'll get freezier tonight and then freezier tomorrow night.
Freezier?
Freezier.
I'm going to start using that word. That's a beautiful word.
Yes.
Freezier.
We had that last night. And so I had a fire, which of course, because it had been warm, it's been really freaking warm here all fall, which has been great for catching up on stuff. But I have the thermal mass of my house going into this freeze. And it's like, well, it's going to be too cold tonight if I don't have a fire.
Yeah.
I don't want to light the fire at 2 a.m.
Right.
I don't want to run heat with electricity. So finally I just did a fire. And then of course, you know what happened, right?
Did it get warm?
I got to open a window in my bedroom to get to sleep.
It's so hot.
It's so hot. And the only thing is the cat is like literally under the stove upside down.
Oh.
And my chestnut dog who has short hair is like right next to it with her belly towards it.
Well, they're happy.
Everybody else was like,
yeah.
It's too hot, Mom.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how the transitions to winter go.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about judgmental people?
Are there judgmental
people talking about judgmental people?
Are there judgmental people?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Like, what is up with here's the judgmentism that probably bugs me the most.
Okay.
And it's I'm not judging you Christian judgment.
Yeah.
But this is how I live my life. But I don't judge you, which is totally said in a condescending tone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it happens there. And the other place I see that same style of judgment happen is like on the Sheep 101 group, where a farmer has a problem and the first comment is like, you're a tard and this is what you should have done differently. I can't believe you even raised sheep without knowing everything there is to know about sheep.
Right.
Which is sort of a similar type of judgmentism.
I feel like you almost see that in any animal group on Facebook, or maybe any. Oh my gosh, can we talk about sourdough bread, sourdough bakers? I just had a whole thing.
Oh, tell me about what happened there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the sourdough recipe that I use, some people would say is not a real sourdough recipe because I add yeast to the starter. That is how I have always made sourdough for the last 25 years. That's the recipe that I started with. So I thought that was sourdough. Well, during the pandemic, everybody started making sourdough and making it like a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody was at home and, learning how to do this thing. And so I posted my recipe, which is from the Tightwad Gazette. And I had so many comments of people just going off about how that is not real sourdough bread. That is not just this whole thing because I had added commercial yeast to it. It just started all these like wars in the comments. And I'm like, I made this bread. The starter sat on the counter for 48 hours and it tastes sour and I'm going to eat it. And you all can fight about whether or not it's real sourdough. And I'm going to have this bread. And people, here's what frustrates me about it. If there are people who have tried to make real sourdough bread, with flour, water, set that on the counter for, 2 days or 6 months, depending on where you live, to get it to actually go, right? Because I live in Minnesota. It's cold here, right? It's cold. It takes a minute. So people who have tried to do it that way and cannot get it to go and then just get really frustrated and they're like, fine, screw it. I'm not going to do sourdough. If they try this recipe, then they're like, oh, hey, guess what? I can do sourdough. And they're all excited because then they have the starter and they can just bake sourdough over and over and over again. And it's wonderful. It's great. And then, but we have people who want to like nitpick and just be like, that's just not even real sourdough bread and I wouldn't eat that. Well, then don't. Like,
no, you're not really living off grid. You're using the internet.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can talk about like anything. There's going to be somebody who's going to be like, you're not doing it the real way.
Yeah.
You're not doing the, well, I don't know. You're not at my house. I don't care. I don't understand who has time.
But the question is, why do we worry about it? So valid critique. You put yeast in your sourdough, so it's not pure sourdough.
Right.
But did you get a sourdough result? Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever done it without adding yeast with that same starter?
I have not.
Oh, I bet you could. It would just take a lot longer.
I could try it. But yeah, like the whole, like that is the sourdough recipe I found when I was 21 years old or whatever and trying to make sourdough. So this was pre like internet in your house. This was not, I can go to Google and look up, like that is literally what I thought sourdough was. So like if it's not real sourdough, it's not real sourdough. I don't like, here's another bread you can try to make. Do it or don't do it.
It tastes like sourdough.
Yeah, and then I was like, I wouldn't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on this. Like, it's definitely sour. And then I had people who were like, oh, you should totally make peanut butter and jelly on sourdough. I'm like, you're missing the point. You're missing what I was doing. It's fine.
So Jokerless says, afternoon, ladies, who wants to come shovel us out because it's our fault that it's snowing.
It is our fault. How much snow did you get, sir?
Yeah, that's a good question. Preparedness HQ says, hey, new subscriber here. I'm not sure to which channel, but welcome to one of our channels. Hello. You should subscribe to both, though. So Farmers Kind of Life and LFTN.
You absolutely should.
Yeah. Martinson Family says, hypocrisy is often detrimental to successful adulting. The other thing is, when somebody's ready to hear the critique, right, of, well, this is how you could do it better.
Right.
Rather than saying what you're doing isn't the thing.
Yeah.
Why don't you say, try this other way?
Right.
And see what you think.
Right. There's many
inches.
Oh, that's big. Wow. Nicole, you are powerful. 18 inches.
It's because I have a swim spa now.
That must be what
I'm not a real homesteader because I have a swim spa.
I'm not a real homesteader because I don't know. I could probably think of 1,000 reasons.
I bet you go to the grocery store.
I do. You know what? I do. And
I bet you buy stuff out of season and eat it.
I do. I'm drinking hollow roast coffee, which I cannot grow myself.
No, I don't grow it either. And I'm the one who roasts it.
We are not real.
We are not real.
We're not even here. We're a figment of people's imagination. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So rather than just say, hey, you could try it this other way, what do you think? It's, that's not really sourdough. That's not really homesteading.
Right.
And I think, what do we learn from that? How do we not take on the negative of that? Because that's the part that's it's like, I don't usually take on negative stuff.
Yeah.
But I will admit, when I see the judgy stuff, I have a moment of twinge, and then I'm like, you can't participate in that, and I walk away. It's that moment of like, why do I get that moment of twinge?
Right. Yeah. Which is a fabulous question. Because like, how do you stop it? Yeah. Because when people say stuff like, there's no real sourdough, or you're not a real homesteader, or you should do it this way because that's, the better way to do it. Not even that it is the better way. It's just the way they've done it. Like, then when we get frustrated with that, we're just like perpetuating this cycle of, now everybody's just angry about like whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
You know who does a really good job at this is Joel Salatin.
Yeah.
So people will come at him with whatever critiques of other people. I've seen him do this, like whatever personality isn't really doing the thing. And he's like, oh, I don't take sides and stuff like that. I think X about what that personality is doing is awesome. And he just does not engage in the gossip.
This is something to shoot for.
This is like, and just watching him just be completely great at that. And I think that's why, I mean, like, he's also had his people go after him.
Oh, yeah.
But in general, people like Joel Salatin from many walks of the homesteading world.
Yeah. And so maybe what we need is more examples of that.
Yeah.
Ways to handle that.
So the only way we do that is we do that.
Thus saith Nicole. Amen.
We do the hard thing. And everybody who listens to my podcast knows that I'm not a saint about that.
No?
No.
That's because we're human.
One time, so my first commercial roaster arrived and it was just flawed.
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time getting them to understand what was happening and fix the issue. And I was 6 weeks in. And I do this podcast, and I basically, and at that time I was not live when I podcast.
Yeah.
I go off on a 15-minute rant about how I hate them. And I hit pause and I went out, I got a glass of water, and I came back in and I went back and erased all of that. I was like, I probably don't need to put that out into the world. And then I was like, and then the podcast, it's like, I'm really frustrated because of this thing rather than like the 15-minute diatribe. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you feel like you have to get it out somehow, though, like maybe that's how you process that by just like, but yeah, it definitely doesn't need to.
Well, I just thought like, okay, what if they hear it?
Right.
Am I ever going to get my roaster repaired? No.
Never.
No, that's not going to do me any good. And I might actually keep people from buying roasters from them because of this. And I'm not 100% sure I should. Yeah. Right. So it was a whole moment for me when I realized, oh, I have to be careful what I say. Yeah. Erin is in the house.
Hello, Erin.
I don't know what this is about, but she says, make your own page and then post it. there.
I think she was talking about when people are saying you're doing stuff wrong and I have a better way to do it, well, then make your own page and
do it
post
the
it
better
there.
way and then be like, hey, try it this way. And I'll go
Yeah.
look at your thing and you're not telling me I'm doing it wrong. You're like, hey, and another thing.
Yeah.
Like, and another thing, people, instead of undermine. If somebody asks you, am I doing it wrong? Like, obviously, and you think, I mean, I guess there are times when things are wrong.
Right.
Like rubbing your chicken with its own poop while it's being, processed and then cooking that and serving it without any sanitation is probably not a great idea. You didn't think I was going to go there, did you?
I was like, that's not where I thought you were going to go, but you did. And that's a great example. That definitely, I would say, would warrant, saying, But then maybe it's how you say it, I mean, because there's 40 different ways you can say something, and like you don't have to be a jerk about it. But then, maybe saying I don't think that's real sourdough is like that's just a statement. Like, why do I take that personally?
I don't know.
Because what if it's like it's not real sourdough? I don't know.
I don't know is there a definition of sourdough? You did ferment your starter.
I did.
And that makes it sourdough. The fact that you augmented it with quick yeast, I don't know. Is there like a panel of sourdough experts somewhere that define where the line between unsourdough and sourdough is?
Somewhere
there
I'm
is?
sure there is.
Yeah.
If there's not, there will be now.
We should be the panel and then we'll just declare it sourdough.
We could be the panel for many things. Who's a real homesteader? We could be the panel.
Yeah. M is in the room and Pippinized has made it.
Howdy, howdy.
Every time I see Pippinized, I just think of rubber ducks and the picture there. Just
there they are. Yeah.
So you have branded yourself, sir.
Perfect.
Okay, so the world's a little weird right now.
It's weird. It's always weird. But,
I flew out of town to a place where I don't usually bring my firearm.
Uh-huh.
And the morning I left, the little voice said, you should bring your firearm. And so then I did all the things you need to do that.
Yeah.
Texted the person, hey, I'm going to be bringing my firearm. It's going to take me extra time because I'm checking a bag because of that.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, you shouldn't need your firearm. And I was like, but the little told me to bring my firearm. The little voice must be listened to. And I think it's just because the world is weird. Now, I did not need the firearm.
Mm-hmm.
But is that because I didn't need it? Or is it because I behaved differently knowing I had that in wherever I was?
Right.
Mysteriously. Yeah. You always wonder.
Yeah.
But
because you can't go back and do it again.
You can't be like, dang it. Yeah. Right. And by the way, flying with a firearm is an enormous pain in the neck.
Yeah.
They're not terrible, but yeah. I almost got stuck at my destination and couldn't leave because they didn't like the case on the way back that was approved on the way down.
Go figure.
2 is 1, 1 is none. I had a second lock. And I'm like, okay, now do you like it? They're like, no, it's fine, ma'am. I was like, sweet.
Oh, gosh.
So glad I had that there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The little voice also told me to bring that second lock that morning. So
little
voice is right about one thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So how are people responding to the election and all the stuff up there at this point?
Like in person or online or just
I mean, when you're out in the world, because I think the online hysterics are not worth looking at.
Yeah, I would say where I am out in public, I would say people are over it.
Yeah.
There was way more stuff going on online than anything I saw in person. Yeah. How about where you are?
It's a nothing burger here so far. I have seen people again online post pictures of people dressed in black carrying red flags with swastikas on them and saying this is actually happening and people are marching in the streets dressed that way.
Really?
I think it was Ohio. And I almost responded, and it's one of my left-leaning friends, and I almost responded with who's wearing these black masks doing this? Is it left or right? Like, you can't even know.
Yeah.
And it was as if this is Nazis coming out of the woodwork sort of thing and walking in the streets. And I was like,
oh,
I feel like that could be a protest in either direction, first of all.
Yeah.
It could be like, yay, now the Nazis can take over, or it could be like, Nazis are going to take over and this is what it's going to look like. And it's very theatrically done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have stereotypes about political leanings of many people in theatrics, although not all. But that's my own stereotype. So I don't know. So I've seen a lot more of that than anything actually physically happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
And I wonder how it'll go in January.
We shall see.
We shall see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. Like, I don't know, if the internet didn't exist, or if social media didn't exist, it would just, like, yeah, there's so much that's happening online, and you just get, you're scrolling and you're just seeing all this stuff. You're like, holy moly, the world is just blah. And then
you walk out and you're
like, hey,
everybody's just stressed out about how expensive Thanksgiving dinner is going to be this year.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My cow went up. It's usually $1,200. It went up to $1,900.
Oh my gosh.
For the year, which, again, not the end of the world, but that's a big jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my taxes went up about 30% on my property.
Yeah. People have been talking about that here a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, what?
Luckily, my homestead's not worth very much.
To somebody else, maybe.
I mean, it's worth a lot to me, but yeah. On paper, this thing isn't worth very much. Rosie, welcome. So, I don't know. So I will say, like, most of the weird stuff I see out in the world, like, for real, are animals being dumped by people who can't afford their animals. Oh, thumbs up. So far, we haven't had any abandoned horses, but that happened in post 2008, that people just let their horses go in the woods.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Oh, wow.
Then they trample your garden if you don't fence yourself off from the woods. And a lot of stress about how am I going to make ends meet, or can't find housing, people saying they can't find a job. Are you seeing that stuff near you?
Saying they can't find a job?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Everybody's hiring here.
Yeah. So
can't find people to work.
While everybody's hiring, also people aren't finding jobs in my area. So.
It's all very strange.
Yes, it's a strange world. It's a mad world.
It's a strange world. I guess there is a little bit of that, because there's, like, everybody's hiring. And so in some places, in people that I talk to, they're like, we can't get anybody to apply. But then in other places, I know people who have applied and applied and applied and applied to places that are hiring and hiring and hiring and hiring and cannot get hired. And it's not like something that, I mean, we're talking like grocery store and house cleaning and stuff like that, where it's not like you don't need a degree. You don't need, 17 years of school and this and this and this to walk in and say, I'm here for this job. It's yeah. And they're not getting hired. And they're like, why are they hiring if they're not hiring? And so there's a little bit of weirdness with that. We've had conversations in different groups that I've been in about, like what's the story behind that? Is it that people have figured out they don't actually need, they figured out how to run short, or, we can put on some tin hats and,
There's a theory that there's some sort of subsidy that businesses get for adding jobs.
Yeah.
So they have to show that they're looking for people.
Right. Yeah.
But I haven't dug into that at all. So I don't know if that's true. Somebody just randomly said that. Anarchy, hello. I haven't seen you in ages.
Minnesota.
Did you
Maybe
that's why it's because you're here, Amy.
Did you make your caramel apple pie filling yet, Anarchy?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I just put out a video for that yesterday.
Oh, I am responsible for 2 desserts for Thanksgiving next week.
Well, there you
Because
go.
it's not at my house like it usually is. I'm going to somebody else's house.
What a deal.
Yeah. So caramel apple pie could be a winner.
It could be.
And I did find that apple pie recipe unlabeled in this box of random recipes. So, okay, guys,
All the
here's
recipes.
a piece of LFTN history here. This was a cigar box that got cut down to hold recipes. And my grandpa's and grandma's recipes from the restaurant and just life are like all in here, handwritten. And I could not find a cheesecake recipe I wanted. So Amy got to watch me go through all of this until I got to the one with no, I'm like, this has no title. And I started reading the agreements. I'm like, ingredients. And I was like, oh, that's apple pie filling for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. We both agreed on that, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It should turn out.
But I should do something. Also, you could get 2 cigars for 15 cents and 5 for 35 cents.
That is a piece of history.
It's like, got a duct tape hinge.
Yes.
I don't know that I've ever replaced that. That thing's old.
I think it's awesome.
Yep. Oh, Anarchy says, nope, we'll check that out this weekend. Need to pick up the ingredients. I'm going to the store this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it isn't Mom. Tactical's like, we could carpool because I have an appointment in town. I'm like, listen, I'm going to the store. I don't know how long it's going to take. You want to get home before dark to put the sheep to bed. Thanksgiving is next week. He's like, oh, I'm going to drive my own car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to pick up a lot of stuff?
I have a lot of errands that have a lot to do with. So this is the new Hollow Roast BB, and this is it's coffee in a tin, and that's the. Can you see it?
Yep.
That way, yeah.
There you go.
So just got them engraved.
Yep.
So that's a Christmas thing. Well, in order to send this, I need to have sealing tape for the edges. I need to go get that.
Mm-hmm.
I need paint for my roasting shack because we just replaced siding on it.
Mm-hmm.
I need N95 masks for roasting because there's a lot of smoke in there lately. So I just decided I should protect my lungs. Mm-hmm. And then like 7 other random things, including groceries. So I'm going to start with groceries because it's the most painful.
It is painful.
And I've got I already have chocolate chip cookie makings here. I got to get cheesecake makings. I've got to buy a ham because I'm cooking a ham. I already have potatoes for mashed. So mostly I don't need much at the grocery store, but I have to go in.
Yeah.
And then when I was in a grocery store on my way back from the airport Sunday, and people are already in stressed out Thanksgiving mode.
Really?
And I really think it's a budget thing this year. Like people were there. They looked really freaked out. I had to go to 2 stores to get heavy cream, of course, because they were out of heavy cream because it's
really?
This is the season we run out of heavy cream. Yeah. Which
Ugh.
was the only reason I was there. I was like, I want some cream for my coffee, and we didn't get the milk this week because I was out of town.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So the stress is only going to go up.
Yeah. So I've seen this stress before, and I really think it's financial.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense.
At the same time, if when you do Thanksgiving, everybody does a piece of it at your gathering, it actually reduces that burden off of one family onto multiple.
Right.
That's all I got for that. Got any extras? That's all I got. That's the best way I can think of if the budget's killing you.
I mean, that's how we've always done Thanksgiving. It's never been at somebody's house where they do all, everybody has always brought something. So yeah, that was just our normal. So, but yeah, if you were trying to put it on all by yourself or mostly holy moly, that'd be a ton.
Yeah.
A ton of work and a ton of money. That's. Whew.
Yeah, I usually do it based around stuff I've gotten from the homestead.
Yeah.
Minus the turkey. Mm-hmm. Which means the side dishes can end up being pretty weird. It's like Jerusalem artichoke mash because I didn't grow potatoes or whatever, But this time, it was my turn to host Thanksgiving after being at a friend's house last year. Mm-hmm. But they have family in town. And I was like, well, if you want to host it, I can bring picnic tables because I have some.
Yeah.
And I'll bring a ham and some other stuff. And then you don't have to, and then you'll have extra people there while your family's there. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of more fun that way.
Yeah.
So hopefully they don't feel invaded because now, I'm sure, Nicole and 9 of her friends are showing up at their house.
How many people do you normally have for Thanksgiving?
I've had like low side has been 6, high side is 20.
Okay.
Because the way it's always worked here is anybody who doesn't have somewhere to go just comes here. So this year it's a little bit of a hybrid because we're going to somebody else's house.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah, Aaron says we'd be eating rabbit if it was just us. Yeah.
There you go.
Anarchy's always been around. Just doesn't always comment.
Oh, okay.
Good to know.
He's stalking us.
Absolutely.
Watching from the shadows.
Tech support job. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much more to say about the world except for if we do end up in a big war, that's going to suck.
I mean, it wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, and we can't stop it.
I was going to say, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't, and maybe that's hanging out like in real life with real people, it's so much different than hanging out online and just seeing, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so I think if, things do go sideways, I think it will be very interesting based on where you spend your time and where your people are, like if they are in real life or in a screen. And then depending on where your screen friends are, what kind of community it is, I think it'll just be so interesting how that just all flavors or colors, how you're looking at stuff and how you're dealing with stuff. And yeah, which has always been true of everything. But, when you've got potential big stuff going on, then,
Yeah, you find out who your friends really are.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how that works. There were a lot of people really surprised by the outcome of the election. And I kept asking myself, how could they be so divorced from reality? Because every measure I was looking at looked like Trump was going to take it unless something nefarious happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect him to get the popular vote, but I was wrong. But not surprised, right?
Yeah.
People just like losing it. I can't believe this happened. I just thought, well, it's probably because they are existing in that online ecosystem that they've built around themselves.
Yeah.
Or haven't traveled outside of whatever area they live that's all in that direction. But what I saw was a complete lack of excitement for the election in any way.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of signs out, but nothing like usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I think people are just over it.
Yeah, I think I would say the closer it got to the election, I would say the more people were just like, I'm just done. Like I just,
It'd be really
even
nice to not get 5 text messages from random people who I know aren't really texting me.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not even real.
Kamala and Trump both texted me
Oh my gosh.
for the election because I'm special.
You control the snow at my house. Obviously, they're going to text you.
I am all powerful.
You're so powerful.
And they both needed my vote in a state where they didn't need my vote. Nope, they needed my money.
Did they?
That's what they're asking for, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, are you hosting Thanksgiving next week?
I'm not.
Where are you going?
Going to my grandma's.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving, like we have traditions for Christmas. We don't have many traditions for Thanksgiving. Like Thanksgiving is always up in the air. We don't even know if we're going to do anything, if somebody's going to host. Like it's not one of those things where, we're always going to grandma's house for Thanksgiving, or we're always, like it's been different every year. So I was surprised that my grandma said, I'm going to host Thanksgiving. I was like, yes, that'll be awesome. Otherwise we're just sitting at home eating whatever. Like it's not a special day. It's just what's for supper, but yeah, so we're going to go. I think it will maybe be myself and the oldest kid. I don't think he has to work, but otherwise, husband is working. Youngest son is not in the area, so we'll travel and eat wonderful food and have delightful conversation, and it'll be good.
What are you bringing?
I don't know yet.
Oh no, guys, help her out.
Well, I mean, I have ideas, but I don't know what the menu is yet, so haven't quite decided. When I posted that caramel apple pie filling video yesterday, and showed a picture of the pie, one of the attendees of Thanksgiving said, "So we can expect this at Thanksgiving then?"
And you're like, okay.
I was like, I mean, that'd be easy, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. But what are your favorite recipes? Because we promised people recipes today.
What are my favorite recipes? I mean, my favorite recipe is carrot pie. That's my favorite recipe. If we do Thanksgiving at our house, which is just, like me and my little family here, I always make sure I make carrot pie. Do you want the recipe for carrot pie?
I absolutely want the
Do you
recipe.
really?
Yeah.
I have it right next to me here.
Well, that's good.
If
Almost
you
as if you were prepared.
I was, yeah. And so you can go to my website, afarmerskindoflife.com. Carrot pie is on there. I think I also made a video for it if you don't want to sit here and take notes, but you should sit here and take notes. So let me tell you, I'm going to read it here for you because I won't remember. So here's what you need. You're going to need 2 cups of grated carrots, 3 tablespoons of butter, a cup of sugar, 3 eggs, a cup of milk, a dash of salt, and a pie crust, unbaked pie crust. The first thing you're going to do, you're going to fry the carrots, grated carrots, fry them up in the butter in your cast iron pan, get them all good and tender. Then you're going to let them cool. Then separately in a large mixing bowl, you're going to beat together the sugar and the eggs. Then you're going to add the milk and the salt. You're going to mix it again. Then you're going to add the carrots into that bowl. You're going to pour it into the crust. Then you're going to bake it. So basically what you're going to have is like a custardy kind of thing with some carrots in it is basically what it's going to turn out as. You bake it at 400 for 10 minutes, and then you turn the heat down to 325 and then finish it off for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Yeah, and it's delightful. Put some ice cream on it if you want, or some whipped cream on it if you want, or don't put anything on it. It's delicious.
It's all about what you want.
It's so delicious. Apparently, it was my grandma's recipe, and my dad made it one year for a holiday. Like, just randomly was like, "Oh, I think my mom used to make carrot pie," and he made it, and I was like, "This is the best damn pie I have ever had. Like, what is this?" And yeah, ever since then.
Do you need to use a pie saver on the crust when you're baking it?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. If it's getting a little too brown, cover them up.
Yeah.
I remember eating a lot of whatever Thanksgiving. I was pregnant with one of my children. I ate a large portion of carrot pie that Thanksgiving, an obnoxiously large portion.
Sometimes that just happens, Amy.
It just happens.
It's fine.
Delicious. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I'll just take half the pie.
I'll just have half the pie. Thank you very much.
Everybody else can have slivers.
And I'll take the other half home with me. Thanks, Dad. Yeah. It's fine. You made this pie for me.
Obviously. Well, that sounds almost like
good.
Carrots meet chess pie.
Could be. I've never made chess pie. I mean, I've heard of chess pie, but I've never made it. But it's delicious.
It sounds really good.
It's so good.
Well, okay. I'm gonna share the pie I plan to make, which is called a cake. What pie is called a cake?
Anybody
know in the comments?
Anybody know?
Want to know? Because when I was growing up, I had a hard time remembering what this pie was called because it was called a cake, and that caused confusion in this brain. And I'd be like, and then I'd describe it to Mom, and she'd be like, "Oh, it's a cake."
Yes.
Nobody's putting anything in the comments right now.
Or there's too much of a lag.
Delay. Yeah. Okay, so this is referred to in my family as the cheesecake. There shall be no other cheesecake, which in my opinion is not a cake. Right?
That is interesting. I've never thought of that. Like, why do they call it cheesecake when it's not a cake?
It's legit a pie. Like, it's in a pie. Like, I guess you can put it in like that pan that the sides come off, but I do it in like a normal pie tin. And for the crust, it takes 3 cups of graham cracker crumbs. You can make homemade graham crackers, or you can make like a spice cake and just crumble that up and toast it if you don't have graham crackers. Oh, by the way, every recipe I give is like all the things I've done when I didn't have all the stuff I needed, because I'm really good at not having all the stuff I need. A 1/4 pound of butter and a 1/2 cup of sugar. I use a 1/4 cup of sugar in that. You mix that all up and then you press it to make that crust that you're going to pour the cheesecake into. And then you bake that at 5 minutes at 350 just to prepare. The filling is 3 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, which I cut in half because I don't like that much sugar, half a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 cups of sour cream, and then I throw that through a blender, pour that carefully into the graham cracker crust so you don't like dislodge crust at the bottom. Throw it in the oven at 375 for 35 minutes, and then take it out and let it cool all the way to room temperature. And then I take 2 tablespoons of sugar, and I actually use 2 tablespoons of sugar for this, a half teaspoon of vanilla, and it's missing the sour cream amount, but it's sour cream. So it is going to be probably, let me look. It's going to be 2 cups of sour cream. I'm going to add that to my document though. I just know it by heart. So it's like, I would have just been like, oh yeah. So we're just going to do that 2 cups sour cream so that next time I email this to somebody, they're not asking me a question. And you pour that back on the top after it's been cooled. If you don't do it before it's cooled, what happens is you end up with weird melty, cracky stuff. So definitely let the pie cool. It's a
all these technical terms, melty, cracky.
Melty, cracky. And then you put that back in the oven 5 to 10 minutes at 375, let it cool. If you put that topping on, if the baked custard cheese egg mix cracks a little bit, it's all covered by the sour cream. And then personally, the mouthfeel between the custard cake and that really smooth sour cream top makes a huge difference to me. Chill for 12 hours before serving if you have the patience.
It's always good to know when it's one of those recipes you have to make ahead. Not like you're going to pop it out of the oven and be like,
here it is.
Dessert is served.
I mean, you can eat it hot. It will melt. Yes. So that's the cheesecake recipe.
The cheesecake recipe.
Yes.
And now I'm going to have to research, like, why is it called cheesecake?
Yeah, well, I want to know.
I'm now distracted by this. Like, what? Why is this a thing? I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments will
also of note in the recipe is the word large.
Large?
Now, the reason the word large is there with no description at all is that everybody who shares recipes in my family has ended up with some sort of weird shorthand. So I totally know what that means. It means use a large pie tin, not a 9-inch.
Use a big one.
Large. This is why I had to write the cookbook, because I was like, nobody understands my shorthand.
Right.
So, yeah.
Needs a little decoding.
Volume 2 is going to come out soon with the preservation section, which is the most important section that never got into Volume 1. Yes.
Cool. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Is that coming? Is that coming soon or?
Soon, but not before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I put all books on hold when my stepfather got sick because I've always worked with Mom on those, and I was like, well, I could do it without her, but it's more fun with her.
Right.
So now we're back, and
cool.
But I will not put in, with people ordering all the BBs at hollerroast.com for gifts. I will not put Mom through that because we'll be in guerrilla production mode between now and December 20th or so.
Right. Yeah. That'd be a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm getting what? I have a dog whining at my door.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to ask you to share a recipe, and I'm going to let her out. But yeah. So what's another recipe? Thanksgiving you love to do.
Another recipe. All right. I got like another pie recipe, or I have this other recipe that's called. Okay, I'm going to give you another carrot recipe, and this one is one of those recipes.
So grow carrots if you live near Amy.
Grow carrots. Okay. So this is a carrot casserole. All right. So we're calling it a carrot casserole, but you know how holidays are one of those things where you have foods you might not normally eat. You're like, it's a holiday. I'm going to fill my belly with, stuff that, this is one of those because it's got like a ginormous amount of butter in it and like it's crazy. Okay. Carrot casserole. All right. Here's what you're going to need. A pound of carrots, 1 onion, 2 sticks of butter. You guys, it says 2 sticks of butter in it. About 4 tablespoons of flour, a cup of milk, and a tube of Ritz crackers. All right. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to boil your carrots, and then you're going to mash them up. Set those aside. You're going to cook the onion in 1 stick of butter. I don't know why we need a stick of butter for an
Because
onion,
it's
but
butter,
that's
Amy.
what you do, okay? This
Yeah.
has so much butter in it, and it's so delicious, but you probably don't wanna eat it every day, that's all I'm saying. Alright, so you cook the onion in 1 stick of butter until it's soft. You're gonna add flour and milk, you're gonna get that thick, right? You're doing that whole thing, then you're gonna add the mashed carrots, okay? You see what we got going on here? Then you are going to get an 8 by 8 dish, you're gonna butter that up, okay? You're going to crush the crackers, the Ritz crackers. You're going to mix them with the second stick of butter that's melted. So that second stick of butter, you're gonna melt it, then you're gonna crush up the Ritz, you're gonna mix it all together, okay? You are going to then sprinkle all those buttery crackers on top of this carroty mashed up stuff, okay? You see what we got going on here? Does this sound delicious? It's delicious. Then you're gonna bake that 350, 30 minutes.
I love that recipe.
It is amazing.
It's also a stereotypical Midwest casserole.
It really is, except it's not a casserole, it's a hot dish.
Yeah,
But I
right.
called it carrot casserole, didn't I? It should
Yeah.
be carrot hot dish.
Yeah.
Delicious. I would only ever make that on a holiday because once you start eating it, you're like, "I need to eat this whole thing," and that's what holidays are for, I believe. We get together and we eat good food and we celebrate, and we don't necessarily worry about what we're eating.
Being keto.
Being
carnivore. I was actually just at Spirko's event,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I usually stick to keto there pretty
Yeah.
well, except for I drink cocktails.
Mhm.
This time I'm like, "I'm just gonna eat whatever I want."
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go home and eat all natural food again.
Mhm.
Yeah. That worked fine.
Yeah.
I did
I
not gain weight.
I feel like sometimes, and I talked about this in a post recently about how, like, I think we go, like, on these however we're gonna eat, like, our special way of eating, and then we feel guilty on the holidays because 'cause we're like, "Oh, what am I gonna what am I gonna make?" And I feel like part of that is because, like, I've always felt like the holidays are for treats. Like, it's getting together with family, it's celebrating, it's just, enjoying all of that awesome stuff, right? Because it's a special occasion, and I think part of the problem is that we've we've forgotten what special occasions are, and we've forgotten what treats are, and we have treats all the time, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think in my post I said something about how when we would get together for Christmas and we'd have Christmas food, it was maybe Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, you had these couple little celebrations, and that's where you had your fabulous, wonderful Christmas goodies, and then you were done. It wasn't this, we start November 1st with the Christmassy, whatever you wanna call it, eating, and it goes all the way till the end of the year, basically, and you've got this office party and this thing, and, "Oh, we'll just make that because," and it's just, yeah, so that's why I don't worry so much about eating all the good food
Yeah,
in the
the first
holidays.
party starts the first weekend of December, and it does not end.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't end.
Yeah,
So then you do have to think about
right,
which days am I having the treat? So here's what I
right,
know. When I was
right.
younger, I could do that and not gain weight.
Yeah, yeah,
I could go up 10 pounds in December by just eating whatever I want at all those parties.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Mhm.
Stupid metabolism.
Right,
And then, yeah, back
yeah.
to, and maybe I shouldn't, right?
I
The other
mean,
thing is
well,
what used to be a treat, an orange was a treat.
right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's not just all fudge and cookies and pies. It's like I get an orange. And when you had the pie, you had a piece of pie, not
Yes.
the pie.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And
I
that's probably true too because, like, so if you're, like, working outside the home or you're like there's more stuff for you to go to. There's, the office party, there's the someone brought treats this day, like all of that. So it's different, I think. So, like, I'm home all the time. I'm just like, "Oh, I'm going to grandma's for Thanksgiving. Awesome. We're going to eat all this great food and then I'm going to go back to, what I was doing." So it probably does depend a lot on that too, like what you're involved in and where you're going, and yeah, it's all different. But
yeah,
the orange thing we were talking about on my page about how, it used to be a really big deal to get an orange, an apple, some peanuts, and a little bit of ribbon candy, in your stocking. Like, that was your thing, and that was a really big deal, and now, you know, people wouldn't
now
even
it's just
think of
like
that.
all chocolate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was my little side rant. Let's go back
Yeah.
to recipes, unless you have more to say.
No, that's fine. You basically said what I was gonna say. I don't need to
Oh,
say it twice.
okay.
We're like she'll go off on these things on Facebook, and I was like, "Man, I was just about to post about that."
There have been some things where I like go off on a rant in one of my groups, and then I look and you did a podcast episode about it the same day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are gonna think I listened to her podcast episode and then like went off. I'm like, didn't you?
It's not what happened. It's
not
just
what
the
happened.
universe. But that's true of a lot. It's like the zeitgeist, right? It's the feeling of the time, and a lot of people will tap into the same things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like there was a marked moment about 2 years ago where all of a sudden all my angry podcaster friends got way less angry. And we're like, maybe we should like learn to get along. Not exactly, but they were just not as now they're all angry again.
It's a cycle.
It is a cycle. I'm like, oh, angry people are back.
Oh,
hi, angry people. Or I just did a presentation at Jack's, and for some reason I was talking about my 3 things, and I walked people through a hero's journey. So they'd understand that the pain side of your story is the most important side.
Yeah.
And then you have the gain side, right? So when you're developing your life strategic plan, you have to understand what you really don't like. Like you have to actually think about that to better understand what you really do like.
Yeah.
It really helps. So I walked through a hero's journey, and I come back and I popped up today while I was roasting. I pop up Dangerous History podcast with CJ Kilmer, and he's started a second podcast, and he was talking about the hero's journey and how he, what it means to his life and having taken, control of his mental health and all this stuff. And I was like, that's weird, because I was like literally just talking about that last week, and he recorded the podcast a few weeks ago, but I didn't even know he did. I didn't see it. Like,
how does this happen?
I just was like, who do I want to listen to today? Oh, I'll listen to CJ.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah, that's just, it's like we are more connected energetically than we realize or would like to admit.
Yeah. So we're not stalking each other, you guys. If you're ever like, oh
sometimes,
gosh.
But yeah, not usually.
Only sometimes.
Well, like when I get inspired by Amy to do a podcast, I say, I read the thing by Amy and I'm doing this podcast. Yeah.
So if we didn't say that, we didn't even know the other person did it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, that's just 100% true. Okay, so this one is one people want to hear from me every year. And it's not my chestnut dressing recipe. It was, I believe, adapted from Martha Washington's chestnut dressing recipe. And the reason I started doing this is I have a chestnut tree and I had a lot of chestnuts, and I started looking and I was like, ooh, Martha Washington has one. Now understand how much dressing Martha Washington would have been producing in her kitchen for everybody is a much larger amount. So I scaled it because I did not need to cook for 30 people.
No,
not that year. 20 is usually my high number, but we can go higher. But yeah. And the thing that makes this recipe work is butter. So it's a lot like your hot dish recipe. So it starts, you need 6 cups of toasted cubed bread, or you can do keto cornbread if you're trying to stay keto, or if you just have stale, if you were smart and left your cubes out for a week, like you're supposed to for dressing, you can use that.
Yeah.
But if you can't, then you cut the cubes up, you turn the oven on, you throw it in there at like 350 for 20 minutes, keeping your eye on it, remembering it's there, not burning it. Ask me how I know. And then you have to do more bread. And that's how you get your 6 cups of toasted cubed bread. 2 full diced onions, 5 cloves of diced garlic. Now, in my world, we're not shy with garlic. I would double that number. Right? And I do. 3 pounds of browned pork sausage. 3 pounds. Okay? 3 pounds. And you've pre-cooked this, so it's browned already.
Okay.
2 to 4 sticks of butter. Don't be shy. Just plan on 6, just in case. You never know. And then some broth or milk that you're going to use to keep it from getting dry. And 3 cups of chestnuts, roasted or boiled. The first year I did this, I roasted my chestnuts. And what happens with roasted chestnuts after you peel them, if you leave them out for a day, is they become chest rocks. So if you're going to do this recipe, you need to do the chestnuts and then do the recipe, or else you're going to, and once it's in the recipe, they actually stay soft. So that's not the issue. It's if you just don't put them in something where they can absorb moisture, they're not going to be good. But then Amy asked me, where do you get chestnuts?
Right. Because I don't have a chestnut tree. That's not a thing up here.
Amazon sells them in metal pouches. already roasted, already peeled. Way easier than peeling all those chestnuts, for the record. Ask me how I know. Then sage. I use fresh sage from the yard. I don't have a measurement, just like a handful.
About that much.
Yeah. Rosemary. If you use dried, make sure you grind it up and don't put the rosemary sticks in, because those are awful when they're sticks.
Yeah.
I usually use fresh rosemary on this one, even though a lot of people prefer the dried. And then salt and pepper to taste. So the way you do this is, it's like Amy. You take a whole stick of butter and you caramelize those onions. Why a whole stick of butter? Because they will absorb some of the butter and it will be delicious. Yeah. And then you add a ton more butter to that, like another 2 sticks after that's done in the same pan. And once it's melted, you throw in the toasted breadcrumbs and you fry them so they get butter crispy. They're already crispy, but butter crispy and crispy, 2 totally different things. Okay. When they're crispy, add the chestnuts. And then if it looks like it's getting a little dry in there, guess what you add?
Butter.
Add more butter. Like, when in doubt, just add more butter. That's just the way it is.
It sounds delicious.
The recipe can't have too much butter. And then add the garlic. And for like 4 minutes, you just kind of stir that around, and then you let it rest and add less of the rest of the ingredients. And that's like the pork, the spices, all of that, till all of the solid ingredients are in there. Yes. Pour that, when it's done, into a casserole pan. I use a big old 5-quart lasagna pan for this. And then if it looks dry, you actually, that's where you put broth in. A little bit of broth or a little bit of milk. You can totally add butter, though. That was totally acceptable, or bacon grease, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you do you, boo, right?
Yeah.
And then you bake it.
Oh my gosh.
Bake it at 350, which is the temperature everything gets baked at that comes out of that time period, because they just didn't know.
Yeah.
For 20 to 60 minutes until it looks nicely roasted. And what will make a big difference about the time is if you're using a metal dish, it will cook faster. I use a Pyrex dish, and I think because the glass is cold, it just takes a little bit longer to bake. If you're wanting to make this happen for Thanksgiving, do everything up until it's in the dish, tin foil and fridge. And then tomorrow, when you're cooking Thanksgiving, about an hour to an hour and a half before you're serving dinner, that's when you put it in straight from the fridge. It takes longer to bake if it's cold too. So that's what I do.
I think it sounds delicious.
It's one of my favorite ones. Last year I made it with keto cornbread. I have some of that in my freezer still that I was tempted to bust out this year, but I'm like, I don't want to bring your old dressing to Thanksgiving. So I'll be doing the chestnut dressing for Christmas this year, because I'm cooking Christmas dinner for, I don't know, probably 2 people. And I'm home on the homes. It's my job to make sure that the critters are handled this year. Because I got to go see my nieces last year. So I'm looking for tomahawk steaks. I want to cook tomahawk steaks.
Yeah.
And I do have a cow getting butchered, so I'm going to ask the butcher if they can cut it. Or I think if I just get like the whole rib area, I can cut my own tomahawks. So I just have to talk to the processor.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll be here in time. If not, I want tomahawk steaks, chestnut dressing, mashed potatoes, and probably the cheesecake again.
Yeah.
Because I really like
cheesecake.
The cheesecake.
Yeah.
I'm going to serve the cheesecake. And then I'll just keep it that simple, because again, if there's only 2 people, I don't need 90 side dishes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I think it sounds delicious.
Yeah. And I really like tomahawk steak. I've only
never
had
one
time. I found one when I was on a business trip, and I was staying in an Airbnb, and I was like, well, I got to cook dinner on Friday night. I'll get a tomahawk steak. And then I had no idea how to cook it.
Yeah.
Had no idea what was in that kitchen to help me cook it. So I brought like some salt and pepper, made sure I had that. And then I learned about a reverse sear. And that's where you like sear it, and then you finish it off in the oven.
Yep.
And I did that without a meat thermometer, and guessed. And I guessed right. And it was delicious. And I like finished it with melted butter over it.
Yes.
So good. So good. Yeah. So then I thought that would make a good Christmas dinner. And actually, I think one steak could feed 2 people if they are not the tactical redneck.
Yeah?
Yeah. He could eat a whole one by himself.
Yeah.
I will eat about half of one.
Yeah.
So if he's in town, which I don't know if he will be for Christmas, I'll make 2. If not, I think I'm the only one here anyway. So, yeah.
There you go.
My job.
Yeah.
We rotate that every year. Yeah.
Sounds like a good setup.
Yes. Cool. So yeah, that's a really fun one. And if you're just hearing this now and it's Thursday before Thanksgiving, you can Amazon chestnuts to yourself usually before it's time to make it.
See, I'm thinking about this. You know, I'm like, can I get some chestnuts here? Because maybe I need to try this.
Let me look on Amazon.
Okay.
And what do we want to talk about next? Are we still
on
recipes?
What do we talk about?
Like nobody in the chat is asking us questions. People in the chat,
they're probably writing down the recipes.
I mean, Anarchy wants you to do pie. Are you doing Pievember?
No,
Maybe
I'm
next
not.
Year you could do Pievember.
Maybe next year I won't do the soup one and I'll do the pie one instead. Or maybe I will, have things. I had to learn how far ahead of stuff I needed to be in order to get all those videos out in time. That was a learning experience for me. And then realizing when you make soup every day, you have a lot of soup in your house. So there's a lot of soup that went into the freezer, which is good. But like I keep thinking I have a million people here with giant appetites, and I don't have that anymore. So
yeah,
there's a lot of leftover soup.
That's a learning curve.
It is a learning curve. But
yeah, so they've got they can arrive by Wednesday if you order them today in my area.
Oh.
So and I usually have slow delivery. So
what is this giant link that just came up in the chat?
That was the chestnuts, but it wouldn't go on my Facebook because Facebook hates me.
Okay, got it. I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
I just went on all our channels.
Got it.
So, guys, that wasn't Amy pasting. That was Nicole disguised as Amy.
I know. It was like, what did I do? You have all the superpowers. Posting the links and bringing snow. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
What else? My husband. Oh, here's my husband got a deer a few days ago out back. And so I have been making venison stock, and I have some venison roasts in my ham brine to make venison ham because it's a thing. It's absolutely delicious. Yeah. So delicious. Making venison stew. We're having that for supper. And I had deer heart for the first time. I've never had deer heart before. And it was the greatest because I wasn't home when my husband got the deer, and I came home and he's like, here, I saved this for you. And I said, what is it? And I look and I'm like, is that the heart? And he's like, yeah, I thought you might want to do something with it. And I was like, that is so romantic.
Deer heart.
They were cleaning out this deer and you were like, I think my wife probably wants to do something with this deer heart. And I did. I wanted to, I've never had one, for supper. So I had that last night. It was absolutely delicious. I ate the whole thing by myself, you guys.
Wow. Did you do like the flash cook, keep it rare? Or how'd you cook it?
I did a marinade for a few hours and then butter in a cast iron pan. And, I think like I did cut it into littler pieces and then, like 4 minutes on one side, 2 minutes on the other. And it was absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can bring me a deer heart anytime.
Yeah, they're so good.
So good, so good, so good. It was a smaller deer, so it was a small heart. It's not like I was gorging myself on a heart this big, but it was delicious. So it was good to be able to. I'm always interested in those cuts that people don't use as often, I guess.
Well, it's because you only get one shot per animal, right?
Right.
So I did a bunch because I did cow heart this year on video. Mm-hmm. And I had never had deer heart either. I heard somebody talking about it. I'm like, man, I wish I could try one of those. And Sean Mills, the next day, like the day after that podcast comes out, it's like, hey, I'm driving home from hunting. I'll stop by and drop off a deer heart.
Really?
And he was like, here you go, try it out. And it was so good. Nice. Same thing. It was like I flash fried it. I cut against the grain of the muscle so it wouldn't be tough. And so I tried that with a beef heart, which is much bigger, right?
Yes. Yep.
Delicious.
Same way.
And then I read that you can do low and slow. And I know that my grandma, one of her favorite stories is, I think it was a pork heart, not a beef heart, that at Christmas, they were very poor. It was in the Depression and they hadn't had meat for months. And the neighbor slaughtered a pig, the neighbor farm, and gave them the heart for dinner. And then her mom stuffed it and went low and slow. And she was like, that's the best Christmas dinner I ever had. And everybody
really?
got a little bit of meat.
Because
at that point, I'm sure they were on like cabbage and onions or whatever they had put up and potatoes and stuff. So, yeah. I haven't tried low and slow. Somebody else wrote me they crock potted a heart and they called it like, was it tough heart or something? Like it never got tender.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I like cooking all that, using more of the animal than, what is common nowadays, I guess, in certain communities. But can you have deer liver? My husband and I had this discussion the other day. He was like, I don't think people generally eat deer liver.
But I don't know. You can. I don't know why you can't.
Maybe it's the area we live in. I don't know. He was saying he had heard that there were more like liver flukes in deer liver, but that might be where we are. I don't know. So he did not bring me the liver, just the heart.
Okay. That's worth looking into. Is it a wives' tale or is there legitimately an issue?
Right.
Because I can't see why you wouldn't eat. I don't eat liver because I don't like how it tastes.
Oh, really?
I love liver. So I know.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I would look into the why. It's kind of like not having rabbits that are harvested during warm temperatures, sort of thing. Like, is that a thing? Can it be a thing? Why is it a thing?
Right.
Like not eating pork because it could have trichinosis. Well, we've learned something. If you cook it all the way, you don't get that.
Right.
If you freeze it for 45 days below 0, it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So, and also if you don't let your pigs roam wild eating carrion, it also probably doesn't have it. But in the off chance it does, there's a way to get rid of it. But yeah.
Well, then it's hard to know, like, I find this sometimes when you're looking up like different ways to eat stuff or maybe eat things that aren't as common. It's hard to know where to find the information on that because if you're going mainstream, you're going to find completely different information about what's okay and what's not okay. And then you got to have your people that you go to and say, okay, here's the thing. This is what I want to do.
I wonder how many people the FDA and the USDA have killed by having their very stringent methodologies.
Yeah.
Because people find out that you can stretch those rules and then they don't believe anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go back to the canning of, people not pressure canning things like green beans, which like I talked to somebody the other day who had just water bath canned it for 25 minutes and thought it was okay. Because Rebel canners say but the Rebel canners say to water bath can it for 3 hours, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's a really long time.
It's a really long time. And then I actually haven't gone back to figure out if my understanding of botulism is it has to be a higher temperature than you're getting in a boil to kill the actual organism. So even a 3-hour boil it's not like a pasteurization where it's like lower but longer.
Right.
But I haven't gone back to the lab to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, does 3 hours actually kill the organism or does it have to get up to like 240 degrees?
Right.
Or 280 degrees, whatever it is. Don't quote me on the number, guys, because I always look at that number before I teach a canning class. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, does that work and has nobody died? Somebody's died somewhere, right? But mostly, you also usually don't have that in your canned goods.
Yeah.
Like we're controlling for something because it's so horrible that if you do have it, it's going to really be bad.
Right.
But it's not commonly, it can be in anything, but it's not commonly in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing with raw honey and babies. I was like, that's bull. And I was like, oh, I see why. Because they don't have acid in their stomachs yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But how many people, like, that's the thing. Like, how many people are just like, they hear the information and okay.
Yeah.
And they never dig into it. They never ask questions. Or sometimes what I find is I'm going to purposely go against the advice because I'm just not going to trust anything ever again. And, the government is stupid and the FDA is stupid and the USDA, like they're all stupid. So I'm just not going to listen to anything, that's like the, other extreme side. And It would just be nice to be able to ask questions and get answers from, just like actual.
Raw milk not properly handled can legitimately kill you.
For sure.
Or legitimately make you very sick.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, ask why.
Right.
How do I know it's been properly handled?
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because somebody asked me if I pasteurize my raw milk before I make yogurt, and I was like, hadn't thought of that. I just put the organism in, and then it's acidic, and then nothing's, So again, I need to dig into that a little bit more, but it hadn't occurred to me to do that.
Yeah.
But I know my source really well for the raw milk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's at this point, they're a fairly large regional distributor.
Nice.
Of herd shares.
What are the rules there?
Herd share. I own some fraction of a cow.
That's what you have to do in Tennessee?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's every year in the state legislature, there's a subset of legislators who want to make raw milk completely illegal here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cite all of these food poisoning cases, and then when you go and look at them, it's like lettuce, carrots, commercial ice cream.
Yeah.
Listeria. It's listeria usually, and they're like, and that's why we don't need raw milk. And I'm like, but they're not wrong. You could get those things from it. So it's sort of like they're putting two half truths together, trying to get this through. And all I can think is there's a milk lobby situation there.
Could be.
Money. They're getting money. It's got to be.
Yeah. It's all about the dollar.
Yeah. So, well, we've gone about an hour. You want to share the cool stuff we're doing and sign off?
The cool stuff we're doing.
Cool stuff.
Are we doing cool stuff? Let's see. I have a podcast, Farmers Kind of Life podcast. I didn't have a podcast episode this week because life got away from me.
Oh, you can have this one.
Huh?
You can have
this one. Yeah. But my Tuesday one didn't come out. What else? Got a website where I got lots of stuff going on. Got lots of YouTube videos. I do have a snail mail newsletter that is going through a couple changes right now. Changes in 2025. But if you want to get awesome stuff in your mail, that's not a bill, and is just something great to sit down and read with your coffee, which could be Holler Roast. Whoops, sorry, I have to go that way because this is backwards, and I have this super cool halo of light coming through my window here. Check that out. That's at my website at farmerskindoflife.com. In the menu, it's snail mail newsletters, I believe. You'll find out about that.
All right. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, which I've been considering renaming the Living Free podcast.
Ooh.
And I am putting that out for feedback. So far, the feedback I've gotten is people feel like they wish it had one more descriptor, but I like to keep it short. Living Free in the Holler was something that was suggested because it ties it to Holler Roast, which is my coffee brand, hollerroast.com.
Yeah.
And so I'm throwing this out for anybody who has ideas. I do own the livingfreepodcast.com in case I need it. So don't, you can't undermine me because I already got it, guys. But I've run into people think Tennessee is where you have to be to get that. So yeah. So I wasn't smart like Amy. I didn't go a farmer's kind of life, which is super perfect for your niche. So good job on that. Anyway, it's at livingfreeintennessee.com. And then I do have a My Three Things webinar that's free coming up January 9th.
Ooh.
Sign up at NicoleSauce.com or livingfreeintennessee.com. And of course, if you need Christmas gifts done, these make good Christmas gifts. We can gift wrap coffees. I've got sampler packs. And in about 6 hours, I will have made a change on the website that does our Black Friday, because I have to go to town and be at the grocery store. Does our Black Friday special. That'll be through Black Friday and into Small Business Saturday, which is free gift grabbing upgrade if you decide to buy a gift at hollerroast.com and have it shipped to somebody. And if you write Christmas in the comments, I will not ship it till after December 1st. So if you want to get a jump on that, I do work with some people who have multiple gifts and just want to give everybody a BB. I literally am sending 24 of these to one person's Christmas list.
Nice.
Handwritten cards I write for her. And we do that with a spreadsheet. So if that's of interest to you, you can just fill out the contact form at hollerroast.com. With that, guys, we'll see you next week or next month. I don't know. You want to do this next month?
Next month, probably.
Okay, let's do it next month. or the month after. Depends on how Christmas works out.
I'll plan for the snow.
Sometime in the future when Amy wants snow, we're going to be back on. See you then.